So I didn't think that I was going to do this today, um, because I've had a lot going on this last week. Um, and I honestly didn't know that I was going to be in the mood to do this. There's been a lot of stress and things, but I changed my mind. So, welcome to Bookworm Weekly. I am Heidi, and last week I let you know that I was going to be reviewing and discussing books by Viola Shipman, aka Wade Rouse. Um, and the book that I had selected that I read this last week was The Summer Cottage. The reason why I decided to go ahead and do this today is because of this book. I literally just finished it 10 minutes ago. And I will tell you that this book is intense, especially if you've gone through some things in your life. I'm almost 41 years old. I've lived life. I've had some rough things, from really bad relationships to issues with my family, and I've experienced extreme grief. I'm still grieving over some of the losses that I've experienced. And because of reading this, it really started pointing out to me that I think I've given up on myself, or I give up on myself. This story in particular is about Addie Lou. The Summer Cottage is someplace that it was a family cottage that her grandfather had purchased on Lake Michigan. Again, these books typically take place around Lake Michigan. And, they had a set of rules for the cottage that her parents had implemented when she was a child. And she was going through a divorce, the end of a 20-year marriage. Her son is grown, in college, doing his own thing. She was in a job that, though she was good at it, she was very unfulfilled and very unhappy the entire time she was doing that job. And she basically just went through the motions of life. She never really lived it for herself. She lived it for others. Always apologizing for who she was and is. And I realized that I do the same thing. I'm always apologizing for nothing, for just being myself, for responding in an authentic and honest manner. And she figured out how to stop doing that. The history of her family's cottage, went all the way back to, stories of Al Capone and in bootlegging, and then, the finding of a time capsule that was placed by a young girl shortly after the cottage was, in a way, gifted to her, that she wasn't allowed to live the life that she dreamt of. She, you know, late 1800s arranged marriage for the good of the family, all of those kind of things. And that that young girl, her name was Sadie, but um, she couldn't live with that. Literally couldn't live with that. And all of the things that happen in this, brought a lot of connection for Addie Lou to the connecting the past to her present. And things that I don't talk about. I lost my mom very suddenly. Shortly after I lost my grandmother, my only remaining grandparent. Um, my husband and I have a very loving, happy, relaxed marriage and relationship we have since we met. But it wasn't always a walk in the park. We struggled with some things. He struggled with some things that he had to heal from before we could really begin our life together. Um, it's something that a lot of people don't talk about, but this is my third marriage. I've failed two marriages and unfortunately other nameless relationships before uh, my husband and I found each other. He went through the same thing, and he's a lot more stable than I am. You know, he's had a lot more stability in his life than I've had, and I actually had to take periodic breaks reading The Summer Cottage um, because of the emotions. They were so intense. The things that I experienced. I mean, the joy that at watching this woman's dreams being realized and her finding herself and her independence and becoming reconnected with who she really is and had always been. And in the course of reading this book and uh, with all of the things that have been happening, um, especially recently, um, my husband and I have hit a bit of Murphy's Law streak in the past several months, and we've had a lot of tension and unfortunately negative energy in our home. Um, we were very excited about this place that we've been in since February, but there's been a lot of downhill and um, unfortunate, unexpected things. Um, large expenses, cars breaking down, health issues. I've had struggles with my job, um, realizing that what I'm doing, and have been doing for several years, it's not my calling. It's not what I'm meant to do. I'm good at it. Similar to Addie Lou, I'm good at what I do, but it pains me. It pains me to go to work every day. I don't find it fulfilling. And that's really hard for me to say. I mean, I work with children. I take care of people's children all day. I don't have children of my own, and I'm okay with that. It's something that yes, I struggle with it from time to time. It's sad, that that was something I wasn't blessed with, I guess, but I was blessed with so many other things, you know, so many other talents that I have given up on. Um, I love to paint and draw and things. I haven't touched my art supplies in it'll be a year in December. No, it'll be 2 years. 2 years in December since I've painted a picture. The rules for Cozy Cottage, the summer cottage. Um, they're they were, fun little things that her parents came up with, you know, to leave their troubles at the door and to enjoy the sunset and to play in the water and to build sandcastles and all of these kind of things. But the number one rule was to leave their troubles at the door. And the final rule was to make sure that when you're shaking out the sand that you're not shaking out the memories, you know? Well, that's unfortunately what I've realized, and I know this is turning into almost like a therapy session, but I feel like I need to share this, that and that's what this whole thing with wanting to discuss literature and things, this is something I've always wanted to do. I want to do this with other people, and I'm hoping that in the future there will be those of you out there that want to share that with me. But I'm going to keep doing this and sharing these things and the things that I feel from them, because they're pure. The emotions that I feel when I connect with a story are the most raw emotions that I experience. That's how that's how books have touched me my whole life. I get so involved that I feel like, in a way, it's a story about me, or that I'm involved somehow. And it's brilliant, and I cannot thank these authors, these writers, these storytellers enough. I can't, because I struggle with allowing my emotions to run free and to know that it's okay to feel what I feel. I might get angry sometimes. I might feel stressed a lot of the time and a lot of anxiety about life, but these little escapes bring out things that cleanse my spirit in ways that even mental health professionals are not able to help me do. I in the story, and yes, I'm giving a lot away, but this is a discussion, and the whole idea was that you read the book before I did this. And so I'm going to stop tiptoeing like I have in the last two episodes of this. Um, you know, this is a discussion, and I'm going to be frank about things, and unapologetically so. You should read this book if you haven't. You should read all of these, because I guarantee you that, because the first one that I did, the page turner, the first of Viola Shipman books that I read touched me in so many ways and made me feel empowered as a woman. And for a man, you know, because like I've mentioned, Viola Shipman is a pen name. Um, but for a man to be writing women this clearly is phenomenal, honestly. And making us see ourselves in ways that we should have always been seeing ourselves. I mean, the confidence that I feel in those moments and the pride that I feel as a woman when I'm reading these stories is amazing. I'm so proud of the self-discovery that Addie Lou had in this story. I'm so proud of the confidence and the ownership of her adulthood and her womanhood that happened in the page turner. You know, it's and the things that were really hitting me in this story, um Addie Lou lost her parents very close together. She, her father died, and then within a month, I think is what the story says, her mother was gone. And it'll be 4 years. It's been 4 years that I lost my mom. I was 37. It was my 37th birthday. And I have so many regrets about the time shortly before she died. So many. I mean, she and I had fought and we weren't speaking, and then she was gone. Life is short. That's the whole thing. And then, you know, I thought that my husband and I weren't married yet, but I thought that I had lost him too shortly after, because he was dealing with things that he wasn't sure how to get out of. And, you know, we separated. We parted ways for a little while. We were friends still, we couldn't shake each other, I guess, in a way, but he had to find his own way, and I had to get out of his way and let him do that. And, you know, I realized that, when things finally had a chance to work themselves out, that the things that I felt, even clear back on my husband and his very first date, actually came to fruition. I just had to be patient. I've never been a patient person. I've never been patient a day in my life. My mother, if she was still here, she'd tell you, because I was uh, impatient in utero. She had to sit on my head for 4.5 months because I kept trying to come early. So I've never been patient, but there was something in my husband's spirit, something about his person that I knew. I just had to let him be who he needed to be. And I struggled being who I needed to be for a long time. I thought that I needed to be who others expected me to be, I'm not a religious person. I will never be a religious person. I don't think religion has any place anywhere. And I am sorry if that's disrespectful to those who practice, and you are welcome to it. I'm a spiritual person. Something I read recently that speaks volumes to me is that the divine, the creator, the divine creator, the whatever that created our existence, this universe, everything that's in it, doesn't belong to a religion. It doesn't belong to a man made thing. It's spiritual, it's individual. It's, and our ancestors knew that. That's why religion didn't exist. The type of religion that Christianity and those kind of things didn't exist until what, 2000 years ago. But everything in existence was created millions of years ago, and they're all connected. All of the energy that we expel, we get that energy back. And the phenomenal thing about even something as simple as a fictional novel, that it can stir in you as an individual, is beyond words. You know, when when my when my mom passed, um, it was the hardest thing in the world because I wasn't ready. None of us were ready. She was 62 years old, you know, and I, like I said, she and I parted, unfortunately, in the midst of an argument. And yet, um, after after her funeral, which happened very quickly because of her wishes, she I received the birthday card. My dad gave me the birthday card that my mom had for me. And she had already forgiven me. And even though I still struggle with the guilt that I feel for the things that I had said to her, which I don't remember now, the things that we fought about, which I don't remember now, they're not even important. But I have up on my wall that card with her photo. I, I cared about what was in the card, not the card itself. But she reminded me that no matter how much we fought, which we did a lot, we butted heads all the time, that she loved me and I loved her, and she was the most important person in my life. I did things to fight against that, that she thought were best for me and knew was best for me, and the advice that she gave me all the time. I fought against it for years. And this might sound a bit weird, a bit morbid, but when she passed, it created a space in me, in my heart, in my existence. It's a freedom that I gained to be the person that I need to be for myself, not for her, not for my dad, not for my husband, not for anybody else. I took on a lot of responsibilities out of family obligation or whatever, and it was crushing me. At the time, it was crushing me. It still crushes me sometimes. But I learned to set up boundaries. My husband actually helped me with that, to set limits and say, look, I love you, but I can't. This is draining me. I get more out of a conversation on a drive with my husband than I get out of 20 years of therapy. Kind of funny, but he understands things about myself. And, he mentioned the other day, in the midst of a long drive, that with some of the stories that I've told him in the 5 years that we've known each other, that my life as an adult has lacked stability. I lacked stability. I didn't have a home. I never lived in the same place for more than a year at best. I hate clutter because if I can't pack it and fit it in a single carload, I don't need it. That's how I lived my life. I always had one foot out the door, always ready to run when things went bad, because inevitably it would, because I was making poor decisions. I was doing the things that weren't right. But at the same time, and the thing that the lesson that came, one of the lessons that came out of this is that if it wasn't for those mistakes, the bad things that happened, which were a lot, my naivety and my over trusting of the wrong people and all that, I would not have been prepared for the abundance of support and love and understanding that I get from my husband. This man is so different than anybody I've ever met in my life. He's accepting of everybody. He is genuine. He's relaxed pretty much all the time. Hardly anything frazzles him. Um, he makes me slow down and think and not and tries to get me not to stress out so much. And it doesn't always succeed, but he tries. And I'm so grateful for that. And the emotions that I felt when I was bawling, like full on ugly crying through so much of this. Some of it was out of pure joy, but some of it was cleansing, because it hit those nerves that I ignore, the things that I sweep under the rug and I just try not to deal with, the things that I tamp down until I eventually explode. So this went off in a completely different direction than I intended it to. And I've rambled about this, but I have to say a huge thank you to Viola for writing these novels that make me feel something. I mean, the other things that I have read some great stories. There's some great romances out there. There's some great series, and I I've read some amazing stories, but it is very, very rare, if ever, have I come across stories that just rip me open. And I mean that in a good way, in the very best way. I saw myself in Addie Lou. So much of myself. And as I was reading this and all of the different stresses that have been happening, I've realized recently that I had shut myself down spiritually. When my mom passed, it's like I just shut the door on it. I wasn't open to any of the things that I used to be so sensitive to, and the things that were really important to my livelihood. And I've recently, if I want to conquer the darkness and defeat the negative and turn things around, I needed to bring those things back. And Addie Lou helped me. She helped me find me, kind of like she found herself. I'm fine. I'm a work in progress always. All of us are constantly. But this was beyond anything that I've experienced, even more than the page turner. And I am so grateful, and I now cannot wait for this. This is the next one I'm doing. This is the Heirloom Garden. It's probably going to hit me hard too, because my first husband was in the military, and we were very young. I was barely 20 years old when we got married, and 6 months after we were married, he nearly died while on deployment. And this is a story about a wife and her husband dealing with trauma from being in a combat zone, and PTSD and all of those things. And the other great thing about these is it spans every generation. So I mean, the first one I read, about it, the heroine was a young woman just out of college. Addie Lou is a woman in her 40s going through a divorce after 20 years of marriage. And so there's in there, I love the connection to the family history in these as well. That there is a matriarch or a patriarch or someone that started this place, or these things, these traditions, and these people, they might have lost their way a little bit, but they come back to them. And I love history. I love family history, and knowing our roots, So I'm looking forward to reading it. I might need to take a breath before I start it, because I'm still feeling so much from the summer cottage, and I can't wait to immerse myself in another deep therapeutic state. So thank you so much for joining me. And I know that was a lot to take from what I just everything, but I hope that you find, if it's not these, if it's other books, share them with me. Let me know those things that touch you, in that way. If, I know for my husband, it's music. I mean, I am connected to music. I come from a musical family, but, and I know how a song or certain things can change your entire outlook on life. But for me, it's a it's a book. It's a story. It's connecting. It's the deepest form of connection. The truest form of connection is when people can connect through literature, because it's like observing great works of art. It speaks so differently to each of us. There's the emotions behind it are just so individual, and yet there's something so magical about how we all connect through things like that. You know, we rush through life. We have to deal with adulting and the hard things like unexpected car repairs and having to cancel vacations that we were looking forward to and all of those kind of things. But if you can't afford to go on vacation, you can afford to go to the library and find a book and escape, even if it's just for a few hours. They're like mini vacations, especially when they're written about beautiful places like these places that are written in these stories. So I'm gonna go now, but please, if you've taken the time to watch this and you feel moved to, I would love to know the stories that mean something to you. And I'm willing to look into those and read them so that I can know you a little better, so that I can understand another piece of humanity. So, anyway, thanks for watching.